Adobe community, welcome back to our Adobe live stream from OFFF Festival 2023 in Barcelona. I'm excited to be joined here today by Gemma O'Brien, a designer who specializes in lettering and illustration and is also known for a lot of your mural work too. So how's it going? How has OFFF been so far?
It's been very good. It's great to be back. It's been 7 years, I think, since my last OFFF, so
oh, nice.
It's nice to be back in Barcelona with the creative community.
Yeah, and that's a long trip for you. Where are you based in Australia?
Sydney, Australia. So the
nice.
flight was about
Sydney.
23 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And so at this OFFF Festival, is there anything in particular that you're excited about, or specific sessions that are coming up?
Well, I had a few friends of the design industry who were speaking, so like Timothy Goodman and Kellyanne from London, Joshua Davis. I'm keen to see Brian Collins speak tonight because I hear he's a bit of a, puts on a good show. So
that'll be cool to see.
Yeah.
Nice. So in terms of some of your work, I know I gave a little bit of a sneak peek in some of the murals, but would love for you to share a little bit more about like what inspires you and what you're mainly focused on.
Sure. We've got the visuals as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my work, obviously I have a love of words and language, botanicals, flowers, plants. So nature and language are probably my two biggest influences. I work across both analog and digital. So anything from, this piece, which was originally created as a digital artwork that combined text and illustration, but then ultimately was screen printed. Or cool. Also like a lot of just regular old school painting. I like the way that you can kind of like take something really structured like letter forms and then incorporate more fluid patterns or motion into both the design but also like the process of creating it. So that's the way that I like to work in terms of switching between the two. And then of course like large scale murals and wall paintings that are sometimes for more art-based pieces or other times commissions. So that's like a bit of a broad spectrum,
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love your designs. Like it's everything from really colorful, and then I see also this piece that you have here in, is that in New York?
In Times Square.
Times Square,
yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, that was at the very beginning of the pandemic, actually. They did this public campaign to send out messages of hope, like right at the beginning when everyone was still locked down.
Yeah.
So it was great to kind of be able to use words for good with beauty and with power and presence in such a prime, amazing location. So that was, definitely a cool project.
Yeah, that's so cool to have such an impact too, and something that's so visible. And I love how you switch between different analog tools and digital tools. Tell me a little bit more about that process and what are some of the specific tools that you use?
Sure. So I guess like it all began, like when I started studying, I fell in love with type through letterpress printing, so it was like very physical, and being in design school and like learning about fonts, like obviously in the Adobe suite or like wherever you were accessing these fonts, I just felt that they didn't have as much of a like human quality, and I wanted to bring them to life. So that's where like integrating more analog processes came along. So nowadays most of my process either starts with pencil, either sketching like on the iPad or on paper, scanning that in. I do a lot of my color testing like in Photoshop, but it's a pretty simple process. Like I don't use lots of like tools, it's like really quite simple. And then to translate to the wall, I'll either use a projector or a pounce pattern, but I've been really interested in lately in like opening up my process and like questioning it and trying to find ways of working that like are really enjoyable for me as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really cool and really unique, and I love how you have this kind of digital print, but then you also have the in-person beautiful murals. I know that we have a newspaper article here too. Tell me a little bit more about that. I know this is La Vanguardia, the local paper. Tell me more about this project.
So the actual project, so this is an article that's about like the OFFF Festival and the designers coming together. So they interviewed a few of us a couple of days ago. And yeah, they included this piece. This was originally created as part of an exhibition in the Museum of Design in Atlanta, working with Debbie Millman, who was curating the project. It was all about text and words, in that gallery context. So we were chatting yesterday about artificial intelligence and like the relationship between, human and analog and digital technology. And yeah, they included this piece, which is quite cool. So
Yeah.
Sent that to Mum back home.
Yeah, that's so cool. No, I love that we have a physical copy here too.
Yes.
We could like show a little sneak peek there.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to take a look at the chat too. So we are live on Adobe Live YouTube and on Behance. So if you have any questions for Gemma here, we can go ahead and pop those in the chat. So we'll take a look. We have Stuart joining us. Nice to see you, Stuart, and Oliver. So we have a lot of, and Pago says, you know, Times Square feature, no big deal. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in there. We got some great comments. How cool, wow, super nice. So again, if you have questions about Gemma's process or the different tools that she's using, go ahead and pop those in the chat. So is there anything that you're working on right now that you're excited about and can share a little bit more?
Well, tomorrow I'm actually flying to Sardinia for a month to do an art
cool.
residency.
Nice.
You know, I've been doing a fair bit of commercial, like digital commercial work, especially since the pandemic, having worked on large-scale murals for so long and then being locked down in Australia, it's kind of like an explosion back into the world and get inspired. So for a month, the goal for me is to like really be inspired, I guess, by nature, but also language. Sardinia is known, they have a very unique, exclusive, like very small area where a specific kind of language is spoken, so I'm curious to like learn more about that and translate that probably into a mini, not super large scale Times Square size painting, but a small painting over the month that will incorporate that inspiration. And yeah, I guess like a lot of my you know, exhibition work that I do outside of my commercial commissions is more of this like playground for exploring new ideas. So recently a lot of my inspiration came from like space and seasons and planets. You know, I think a lot of people talk about, you know, how amazing is the AI, but it's like a few days ago, 5 planets were aligned. You know, like there's very cool stuff happening out there.
Yeah, of course.
So this is like a bit of a deviation from my original style and kind of going back, as I said before, to more like pencil and paint techniques, looking at like cloud patterns, but then also incorporating some of that digital process and then recreating it in charcoal, scanning leaves. So this is like the early stages of some new directions, which I'm excited about. Clouds, seasons. I think a lot of artists were inspired by the natural world, especially during this pandemic period, because you know, it's something that's right before us and you can watch the changing things happen when you're in one place. So that's stuff that's been inspiring me right now. And then the other thing is, I have this amazing big studio space in Sydney, and you know, it's got these great big tall ceilings, and I have my own scissor lift, and I really want to, you know, take some of that more experimental stuff and try painting large scale in a different way to normal. So, you know, my original process, as I mentioned, would be, you know, creating a digital design, translating that into paint, or like in this instance, it might stay in the more digital form. This is printed like as a vinyl. But what I'm curious about is, you know, how can the strokes that transfer onto the wall become more like calligraphic or more fluid and less constrained, like breaking free a little bit. So that's when I get back to Sydney after the residency, what I'm going to start to do is just like work directly onto those walls of the space and have like an open studio. So if anyone wants to paint in Sydney in the next, it'll probably be in May or June, I'll have like a team of painting assistants come together. So
that's so cool. And I know the Adobe Live community is very global, so I do know we have people based in Sydney, so we'll definitely share that out. But it's incredible. It's so beautiful to see, like you said, it kind of breaks free, and especially at such a large scale, to see these designs come to life. It's been cool to see that at OFF and some of the other designs that we have here too. And Sardinia sounds beautiful. Like, I'm so excited for you, and I love that influence of nature. I know that's something, even here in Barcelona with Gaudí and all of the architecture here, a lot of it is really designed and inspired by nature and by flowers and trees and all of the beautiful landscape. So no, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of this. And are you going to be sharing this later with any talks?
I think that I'll probably share a lot of the process. Sometimes I like balance my social media where it's almost like if I want to go into flow state, I actually need to have no distractions. But then I do think to come out in moments and share what you're making can be inspirational to people. So I think during the residency I'll share like process along the way. But are you an artist?
So I majored in literature
That's
and also dance. So I was a ballerina for many years.
Amazing.
So,
okay.
but in the artistic space, like it's something that I enjoy doing. I like painting. I take classes, but
Yeah.
definitely not a professional like yourself. But I really enjoy seeing all of the beautiful artwork.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And so what else do you have planned while you're here in Barcelona besides the OFF Festival?
I would like to see some more art. I went to the Picasso Museum. I've just had a bicycle and was riding around earlier today and just taking in the vibe. I could definitely live here. It's a very beautiful city.
Yeah.
Done a few runs, caught up with a few other creatives.
Nice.
That's about it, really.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. I actually just moved here 3 years ago from San Francisco, and it's a great community of creatives, a lot of different artists, and of course, being by the beach is really nice, just like Sydney,
that's
of course.
Great. San Francisco to Barcelona. I like that.
Yeah, it's a great change too.
Nice.
But I know there's a lot of creatives that we've connected with here this year at OFF. Anyone in particular, or any artwork that you saw today or yesterday that really inspired you?
It's a good question. I think that I've actually had a lot more inspirational conversations. Like a lot of the artwork, like because I've been in the design industry for so long, like I feel like I know a lot of my favorite artists who I'm seeing here. I've seen a lot of their work before, but a lot of interesting conversations like around AI and what it means to be human and what it means to be creative.
That's a big
happening
theme.
in the speakers room, and I think it brings up lots of ideas of like fear and threats to like your creative practice, and it like triggers something like on a deeper level, which I find really interesting. I think it shows how much people value doing creative work, which I think is an interesting thing to think about. So those conversations have been inspiring. I think it's always good to like take a step back and like be a bit more philosophical about your practice. So that's been really inspiring to me.
Absolutely, and artificial intelligence has been a huge theme, I know, this year at OFF, and how we can leverage it as a tool within workflows and inspiration more so. Is that anything you've experimented with in the past?
I mean, I've played with it just to I think it's as a good soundboard. Like I work in the studio so much by myself, and I love working solo to get things done, but sometimes you just need like something, like an element of surprise in your creative practice. So to use the AI in that way to like generate these images, it's not like I actually then use those images in my artwork, although maybe down the track I will, especially like the way that I approach my murals sometimes is collaging influences from all different sources. But even just to see like, oh, here's another approach, or here's a color palette that I wouldn't consider, and like, it can sometimes like just spring you into action, like especially if you have creative block. Just seeing something visual gets you out of your head and into this other space. So I find that side of it really interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes it's combinations you might not have thought of before, and it just, again, like you said, it sparks that inspiration to just get started.
Yeah,
of course.
Totally.
Yeah, no, it's really cool to see all of the new developments here at OFF too. And I'm going to check out the chat one more time.
Sure.
So again, if you're tuning in from YouTube or from Behance, go ahead and post any questions in the chat. Stuart joined in and said, can see Gemma work all over surf, snow, and skateboards. Really cool. I can see that. Is that something that you've experimented with in the past?
I did do a lot of work with Volcom,
cool.
In my early stages of my career. I did like designs for them and murals, and actually one in Barcelona, like when I came last time.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely can see how it resonates in that area.
Yeah. No, I think we'll have to check that out. So maybe Stuart, stay tuned to
thanks
Gemma's
for that
Instagram.
comment, Stuart.
And then let's see, we have hello from Sean and Odari. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in there. But as we're kind of going through your work here, I'm seeing just such a combination of that, again, that analog mixed with that digital piece. Is there another example you have where you use kind of both, maybe it's other mediums like painting or pastels, and then kind of translated that into kind of a digital format?
Yeah, I think it's like in every, even in this piece here, this was created at Outside Lands. That was like a collaboration with like using lyrics by Lizzo and two other artists. So sometimes like using pencils and getting these colors, like I might actually choose the paints colors first, and then you can see like I didn't even complete the artwork, but it's just like, I think sometimes the process of working manually, like it feels good and it feels nice, but then I'll move to digital when like the deadline is approaching and
Yeah.
like time is of the essence. So then like you can kind of see in the painting like the
Oh,
translation.
so cool. I love outside lands. I've been many years in the
I
past.
guess
It's
living
so
in San
fun. Yeah.
Francisco, that would make sense. Or
Yeah.
even so like this piece here, I would start with like, say an existing font, like, you know, it could be as simple as using like Futura or something that's like a simple, clean sans serif that is very familiar to people. Like I feel like sometimes with creative work, it's nice to find that sweet spot between like familiarity and then like uniqueness. So starting with a familiar like font, and then I would kind of set this up in Illustrator and, you know, play with the positioning, move the letter forms or the numbers in this case along the baseline, print that out, and then maybe do a loose sketch that like, you know, would incorporate the flow of the overall piece depending on the output. I then might, you know, pull from my pool of flower references, scan them in, go back into, say, Photoshop to position them as a collage, and then reprint it out and draw the whole thing by hand. So it's like
Wow,
definitely
so
like
cool.
a back and forth. And, you know, that kind of then can be output to any different kind of products or client pieces.
Yeah. No, that's, I love that kind of that mixture too, because it's a really creative way to be using some of the Creative Cloud tools too. Kind of
Yeah.
mixing that analog piece in. Is there what is your favorite mural you've worked on? Like I've seen so many different examples here, and
I
yeah.
think it would probably be like this Joy mural that I did for an exhibition back in 2016. There's something about it that when I created it, I had a feeling that like after 5 years of exploring this combination of type and image and large scale painting, it just came together on that project. And the forces were like, the art gods were on my side, I felt. And then it's really resonated with people. And I think that's the good reason to put things out into the world, is because you see, like sometimes what you like and what the world likes don't align. So when they do, you know,
It's the
like
perfect
it's something.
combination,
So
yeah.
like there's something about this piece that I always come back
beautiful.
to. It's often referenced by clients when they're commissioning work.
Right.
And there's something about the word as well, like using the word joy. You know, it's got this big O in the middle. You've got J-O-Y, and that center circle kind of creates this force that all the illustration can go into. So it's like, again, the perfect marrying of like language, letter forms, combining structure and organic shapes. And so yeah, I think that is the unbeaten favorite.
Yeah.
You can kind of see the
So
final piece here.
Where is it located?
It doesn't exist anymore. So
Oh,
a lot
okay.
of my exhibition installations, part of the concept is that they are like fleeting. So I
Okay.
will install them, they'll be up for like 2 weeks or a month, and then it'll be painted white at the end.
Okay.
So it becomes more about like the experience of being there and the existence of that, like in your memory, rather
Yeah, of
than
course.
physically. So the photos are basically it that is left.
That's like life, though. Everything is fleeting.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's beautiful.
I guess as a dancer as well, you probably like appreciate like the physical side of, you know, part of the reason I love doing murals is like the physical scale. Like you read these words with your body, like through space, and translate that like movement in there as well. So this is a piece, like it wasn't a mural, it was for an exhibition of all female artists, and it was the first time I started to incorporate more of these like high-pitched fluoro colors, and this like neon yellow. Like, you know how the translation from physical to screen, often things get changed or dulled, and like there was something about this paint though, it just like cut through, and it's like high vis. And so I think it was like this really nice marrying of like digital world and real world stuff as well. So
yeah, I love that neon, and it just stands out so much too.
yeah, so this is my studio space. So you can see here, like this is the little scissor lift. So the ceilings are like 5 meters high. So the plan is to like take these prints down and, you know, start playing around with painting on the walls. One of my favorite artists at the moment, who's like more from the fine art world rather than graphic design, is Katharina Gross. So this is her like amazing work. You can kind of see the influence of the colors in my work.
Yeah.
She's a German artist, and she does these huge, like really incredible, like breaking out of the bounds of canvas pieces. So that's a huge inspiration to me as well.
That's so beautiful. Where's that based?
That was an installation in Carriageworks, but she does pieces all around the world. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I love this. It's like larger than life. Like you can actually experience it, and like you said, like dance, to actually have that full body experience of the art and of the whole mural piece. Do you have, before we wrap up, any plans here in Barcelona to collaborate on anything, or maybe check out some museums while you're here too?
I would like to go to the Joe Miro Foundation tonight, like maybe after the Adobe portfolio reviews, and to watch the sunset.
I know we're so close to the beach here right now, so it's really nice to be able to catch the sunset there. Nice. Well, thank you, Gemma, so much for joining us today. For those who are watching, if they would like to get in touch with you or check out more of your artwork, what would be the best way to do that? So
my Instagram, which we've been having a look at here, is Mrs. Eves 101, and Twitter is just Mrs. Eves. Or you can send me a question. You can email me at studio@gemmaobrien.com.
Great. Thank you again so much, Gemma. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Barcelona and at OFF. And for those who are tuning in, we will be live for the rest of today with more great sessions. Our portfolio reviews are coming up, so be sure to stay tuned in the chat. Bye, everyone.